We love the paved streets of Rua de Santa Maria. But I have to admit, ever since I arrived in Madeira 3 years ago, I became absolutely fascinated by this sign over the restaurant here. Over the last few months, I've been using my long dormant skills as a newspaper reporter to discover some of the stories behind the famous historical people who visited Madeira. And with this video, I'm sharing some of them, including a lot of people who aren't on this list. Let's start with an easy one most know. Christopher Columbus. He was in Madeira between 1480 and 1482, specifically on the island Porto Santo, where he married the daughter of that island's governor. He reportedly sharpened his navigation skills while on the island, which now has its museum and reportedly the house he once lived. Particularly in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, Port of Funchal was an important stopping point for ships going from Europe to places south or to America. Whether you can call these people visitors is up for debates because many of them didn't even get off their ships. For example, Napoleon, who was on his way to exile in St. Helena when his ship stopped in Funchal in August 1815. While he never set foot on the island, the defeated leader did receive an array of gifts, including a large flask of Madeira wine from Blandys. Napoleon never opened the barrel and eventually made its way back to Madeira, where its contents were emptied into 200 special bottles that were either sold for extravagant prices or given to visiting dignitaries such as Winston Churchill. We will get to him later. The Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen had an air of drama to it. Having found out that Robert Peary had already reached the North Pole, Amundsen decided while on the island to head south and while still in port, telegrammed his main competitor Robert Scott that he was heading towards the South Pole, which he reached on October 18, 1911, 35 days before Scott, who was greeted by a Norwegian flag and tents when he arrived in January 1912. About 40 years later, in June 1954, Ernest Hemingway sailed into Funchal on a ship headed back to his home in Cuba. Though he was the subject of a front-page interview in the local paper the next day, most believe he never left the ship. But his wife Mary wrote extensively about her tour through Funchal, including a ride on the Carrero sleds of Monchi. Speaking of Hemingway, his contemporary and fellow 20th century literary giant, John Dos Passos, has an even stronger connection to Madeira, as evidenced by this cultural center in Ponta do Sol. Over the years, lots of kings, queens, duchesses, dukes, princesses, princes have visited Madeira. But really, I want to talk about only one royal family who visited Madeira. This is Reed's Palace, one of Madeira's oldest and most prestigious hotels. Not surprisingly, it has hosted plenty of the rich and famous over the years. Shortly after he was overthrown by Fidel Castro, longtime Cuba dictator Fulgencio Batista arrived in Madeira. He and his family took over the entire second floor of Reed's Palace after Portuguese authorities determined that a hotel would be safer than the villa Batista really wanted. Batista's was at Reed's when the botched Bay of Pigs invasion happened in April 1961. Gregory Peck and John Huston stayed at Reed's in 1956 while shooting some whale hunting scenes in the eastern Madeira town of Caniçal for the classic movie Moby Dick. At that time, Madeira was one of the last places on Earth where whales were hunted with open boats. Whaling ended on the island in 1981. Another visitor to Reed's Palace was the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, but perhaps he's better known for his association with Câmara de Lobos. Pope has only been to Madeira once, but what a visit it was, as evidenced by this statue. We end with Cliff Richard. One reason I really like this photo of the British singer during his 1965 visit. The other, it gives me an excuse to play this clip from my favorite TV show of all times, The Young Ones.
Oh, Cliff! Sometimes it must be difficult not to feel as if you really are a cliff when fascists keep trying to push you over it. Are they the lemmings, or are you Cliff? Or are you Cliff?